Every major museum tells you T-Rex stood tall, head thrown back in a triumphant roar, and it is a pose so iconic it sells millions of gift shop postcards. But for over 30 years, fossil evidence has quietly proven this mount is forensically impossible. The neck vertebrae jam, bite marks angle the wrong way, and the skull is a 600-pound deadweight science says could never be held up like that. So why do curators still cling to a fantasy exposed by their own bones? What you think you know about the world's most famous predator is about to unravel, one impossible joint at a time. Tyrannosaurus rex wasn't built for drama. Its neck tells the story. 10 massive vertebrae locked together with the interlocking neural spines, each one braced for power, not flexibility. When paleontologist Kenneth Carpenter set out to map the range of motion in 1990, he was not hunting for spectacle. He measured how the bones actually fit, bone against bone, and found the upward bend stopped cold at about 15 degrees. That is less than the angle of a typical office chair recline. The show-stopping museum pose, with the skull craned skyward in a triumphant bellow, demands a 45 to 50 degree arc, 3 times what the actual bones allow. Kent Stevens took this further in 2002 with digital modeling, rotating virtual vertebrae in 3 dimensions. Every attempt to mimic the museum mount resulted in a jam, bone colliding with bone, neural spines locking up long before the jaws could ever point skyward. The physical constraints are absolute. Thousands of specimens, from the famous Sioux to lesser-known mounts, all tell the same story. The neck is a lever, not a crane. No matter how you arrange the vertebrae, the only way to achieve the classic roaring pose is to overlap bones in ways that never happen in nature. The evidence is as plain as the fossil on the table. The real Tyrannosaurus rex could never have struck the pose that fills museum halls and postcard racks. The bones themselves refuse the fantasy. Bite marks never lie. Across the fossil record, Tyrannosaurus rex left its calling card on the bones of its prey, punctures and gouges that read like a field report from the late Cretaceous. In 1996, Gregory Erickson and colleagues cataloged 47 separate specimens bearing unmistakable T-Rex bite marks. The pattern was clear. Every wound showed a consistent downward angle, typically between 30 and 40 degrees. Triceratops frills, hadrosaur ribs, and Edmontosaurus vertebrae were all scored by the same geometry. The jaws did not come in from the side or sweep upward in a theatrical snap. They struck from above, tooth tips angling down, crushing bone with the force of a hydraulic press. Later in 2017, Gignac and Erickson reconstructed the biomechanics of Tyrannosaurus rex bite. Their findings matched the fossil evidence. The animal's skull and jaw structure funneled power into a downward motion, not a sideways slash or an upward lunge. The feeding posture was unmistakable. Head low, neck extended forward, jaws clamping down over carcasses, not rearing up for a display. Each bite mark locked in the angle like a fossilized snapshot of a feeding event. This is not a matter of artistic interpretation. The geometry of the wounds and the physics of the bite both point to the same behavior. Tyrannosaurus rex fed with its head down, not up. The fossil record does not just document what Tyrannosaurus rex ate, it captures how it ate, and in doing so exposes the museum pose as pure fantasy. The bones of its victims are the final word. An adult Tyrannosaurus rex carried a skull that weighed nearly 600 pounds, roughly the mass of 4 bowling balls or a full-grown dairy cow's hindquarters, balanced at the end of its neck. In a horizontal position, this enormous head sits in equilibrium, supported by a lattice of bone, tendon, and muscle. The neck acts as a bridge, distributing force efficiently along the spine and into the body. Raise that skull vertically, though, and physics turns hostile. Gravity drags the head forward, shifting the center of mass away from the hips. and dumping the load onto the cervical vertebrae. The result is not just a sore neck. Every degree the head tilts up multiplies the torque, demanding 4 times more muscular effort just to keep the skull from toppling. For a predator that already needed 20,000 calories a day just to survive, this kind of energy drain would be catastrophic. No animal invests in a posture that burns fuel for drama's sake. The real Tyrannosaurus rex did not waste resources holding its head high for a photo op. It kept its skull low, close to the axis of its spine, minimizing effort and maximizing efficiency. Museums may favor the theatrical pose, but the laws of physics and the fossilized anatomy leave no room for fantasy. When the numbers are this unforgiving, the truth is hard to ignore, no matter how many postcards need selling. The first Tyrannosaurus rex skeleton ever mounted for public display stood up in 1915 at the American Museum of Natural History, its tail dragged on the floor, its head craned high, and its posture owed more to the limitations of steel rods and plaster than to any reading of the bones. Early engineers faced a puzzle: how to fit a mountain of fossilized bone into a Victorian gallery built for marble busts, not 40-foot predators. They solved it with spectacle, raising the skull, arching the back, and propping the tail like a third leg. That upright silhouette became the default, not because it was correct, but because it fit the room and the era's sense of drama. Decades later, new discoveries forced museums to admit mistakes. In 1988, a Tyrannosaurus rex was unearthed in Montana with both arms intact, each sporting only 2 fingers. Within months, museums quietly swapped out 3-fingered hands for the correct pair. No fanfare, no debate, just the evidence and a quick update to the display. When it came to posture, though, the old pose stayed put. By the early 1990s, paleontologists had already published studies showing that the classic mount was biomechanically impossible, yet the skeletons remained upright, jaws agape, as if waiting for a cue that never came. Updating a Tyrannosaurus rex mount is not a matter of tightening a few bolts. Most displays are built around custom steel armatures, welded and anchored directly to the fossils, or more often, to painstakingly crafted casts. Reconfiguring a single mount, dismantling the old supports, repositioning bones, engineering a new horizontal stance, and rebuilding the display case costs between $2 and $5 million. That price tag includes labor, materials, and weeks of gallery closure. For many institutions, the financial risk outweighs the scientific embarrassment. Textbooks began to catch up in the early 2000s. By 2005, most illustrated Tyrannosaurus rex with a horizontal spine and a tail off the ground. Yet in the halls of the Smithsonian, the Field Museum, the American Museum of Natural History, and the Natural History Museum in London, the old pose endures. These are not relics of ignorance, they are deliberate choices, calculated against budgets and visitor expectations. Even as the evidence mounted, the mounts themselves stood frozen in time, a century-long experiment in institutional inertia. The cost of correcting the record, both in dollars and disruption, has kept the fantasy alive well into the 21st century. The blockbuster era hit museums like a tidal wave. After Jurassic Park stormed theaters in 1993, attendance records did not just climb, they doubled. Gift shops scrambled to keep up, churning out T-Rex merchandise in every conceivable form: mugs, plush toys, snow globes, and t-shirts, all stamped with the same instantly recognizable silhouette: vertical tail, head thrown back, jaws wide in a silent roar. For many institutions, this was a brand. By the mid-1990s, visitor surveys revealed that nearly 8 out of 10 guests expected to see dinosaurs that matched the movie. The public wanted spectacle, and the vertical T-Rex delivered. Behind the scenes, marketing departments took the reins. Internal reports tracked foot traffic and retail sales with the precision of a Wall Street analyst. By 1995, T-Rex displays accounted for 40% of total museum attendance. Admissions and gift shop revenue, now tightly linked, made up about 60% of the average museum's income. The vertical pose, with its dramatic lines and postcard-ready profile, became more than a scientific compromise. It became a financial strategy. 85% of all dinosaur-themed merchandise featured the head-high stance, and anything less was considered a retail risk. The pressure to keep up appearances reached the boardroom. Directors weighed the cost of updating mounts, $2 to $5 million per skeleton, against the possibility of alienating visitors. One internal memo from a major American museum asked in plain terms if a more accurate but less dramatic T-Rex would sell as many t-shirts. The answer for years was no. The silhouette was the product was the pose, but the numbers were not always on the museum side. In 2019, a mid-sized museum took the leap, investing in a complete remount to reflect the latest science. The result was a horizontal T-Rex, head down, tail straight, posture grounded in fossil evidence. The backlash was immediate. Attendance dropped by 15% in the first year, and gift shop sales slumped. Critics called it a mistake, a surrender to the dull and the ordinary. Yet by the third year, something shifted. Attendance rebounded to baseline, and educators praised the museum's commitment to accuracy. The gift shop adapted, rolling out new merchandise that matched the real animal's silhouette. The lesson was clear: change was possible, but the road was rough and expensive. For most institutions, the old pose remains the safer bet. The vertical T-Rex is a guaranteed draw, a merchandising engine that pays the bills. The science may be settled, but the economics are anything but. In the world of natural history, the truth is not just a matter of bones, it is a matter of balance sheets and brand loyalty. Behind the glass and velvet ropes, the real conversation about T-Rex posture happens in back hallways and conference rooms, far from the gift shop. Paleontologists and preparators, the people who actually assemble these skeletons, have been raising the same objections for decades. One consultant who has advised 3 major U.S. museums summed it up without hesitation. "We've been telling them for decades, they just don't want to pay for it." The frustration is not about scientific uncertainty. It is about budgets, boardrooms, and the uneasy alliance between science and spectacle. A senior preparator at a world-renowned natural history collection put it more bluntly: the gift shop team has more influence over displays than the science department. That sentiment echoes through off-the-record interviews with more than a dozen museum professionals. Some describe meetings where curators present new articulation studies, only to be met with silence from administrators. Others recall board members asking whether a more accurate horizontal T-Rex would sell as many t-shirts. When the answer was no, the proposal died on the spot. At a 2015 paleontology conference, a panel on museum science communication drew a full house. Slide after slide showed the disconnect between what the fossils prove and what the public sees. One researcher presented a timeline of published articulation studies and museum mount updates, or lack thereof, and the audience laughed. The underlying message was clear: the science is settled, but the skeletons are not. For some, the resistance is personal. A preparator who requested anonymity described years of lobbying for a corrected pose, only to watch the old mount remain untouched. "It is not ignorance," he said, "it is marketing. We know it is wrong, but fixing it does not justify the cost." The result is a silent standoff. Scientists keep publishing, museums keep selling, and the real T-Rex stays locked behind a pose that everyone in the know admits is for show. The evidence is there, the expertise is there, but until the incentives change, the bones themselves remain the only honest witnesses. The most accurate portrait of Tyrannosaurus Rex looks nothing like the museum icon. The Eofauna team, working from Sue's skeleton and the latest digital models, rebuilt the animal bone by bone. Every vertebra, every rib, every muscle path checked and cross-checked against the fossil record. The result is a predator that stands with its spine nearly parallel to the ground, neck extended forward, the head held low and steady. That famous tail, thick and muscular, stretches straight back as a counterweight, not dragging, but acting as a rigid beam, physics in action, not fantasy. The 15-degree neck limit, confirmed by both digital and physical articulation, means there is no dramatic upward sweep. The skull, weighing as much as a grand piano, is cradled in balance, not lifted in defiance of gravity. Behavior follows form. Multiple prey fossils, Triceratops, Montosaurus, Hadrosaurs, show clusters of bite marks, sometimes dozens on a single bone, each angled down at the 30 to 40 degrees. These are not the wounds of a lone ambush artist. They are signatures of group feeding, with several T-Rex converging on the same carcass, targeting joints and ribs for maximum nutrition. The evidence for cooperative scavenging is written in the fossilized chaos of chewed bone and overlapping tooth scores. Efficiency, not spectacle, ruled the Cretaceous plains. Olfactory bulbs the size of grapefruits gave T-Rex a sense of smell unmatched by any land animal before or since. It could detect carrion from miles away, homing in on opportunity with the patience of a vulture and the power of a lion. The real animal was a 9-ton opportunist, part hunter, part cleanup crew, all survival. Forget the mountaintop monster. Picture a living, breathing engine of efficiency, built for endurance, teamwork, and ruthless pragmatism. The truth is richer, stranger, and far more impressive than the myth. Science at last gives T-Rex its dignity back. Today, nearly every museum still chooses spectacle over science, even as 50 million visitors a year, most of them children, absorb fiction as fact. When institutions trade evidence for entertainment, they do not just misrepresent T-Rex, they erode public trust in scientific truth. The real story is still in the fossils, waiting for us to look closer, question the display, and demand the evidence. What else in the museum is more myth than bone?